Hello everyone, and welcome to a brief overview of the Rathalos trial, which is a part of the Final Fantasy XIV and Monster Hunter World crossover event. Normally I don't do these kinds of things, but the Monster Hunter series is one that's been near and dear to my heart for over a decade, and I want to make sure everyone going into this has the best experience possible. I also want to make sure that the expectations going in are realistic. So my goal here will be to give some tips on how to take down the King of the Skies, while also listing off a few differences between Final Fantasy XIV and Monster Hunter that can make things a tad more challenging than they'd be in Monster Hunter itself. I know that a good number of players have been interested in Monster Hunter World because of this crossover, but there are also others who are being turned off to it because of some misunderstandings in gameplay and mechanics. If you're a part of the latter group, I hope this can give you some clarity as to what this trial is and what you should expect from Monster Hunter World, if you ever give it a shot. If you still don't want to try Monster Hunter at the end of this, that's fine too, but hopefully you can at least get a few clears of this trial under your belt with these tricks. Okay, enough intro. Let's hunt. The first thing you'll notice, apart from your new handy Mega Potions and 3 Death Limit in Extreme, is that Rathalos does not use Enmity. The gauge is still there, but he attacks players indiscriminately. This is fine, since he doesn't auto-attack, but it's going to require DPS and healers to pay attention to more than their rotations or the party's health bars, or else you'll be tanking the floor before you know it. And that brings me to my next point. He has no cast bars or visual telegraphs. Aside from a couple fireball attacks he does, Rathalos only provides visual cues based on his posture. Because of this, you'll have to pay attention to what his body is doing rather than what you see on the ground or on his target bar. There are 4 main ones to watch out for in this first phase: the bite/tail whip, the tail spin, the frontal charge, and the evasive fireball. That last one especially. Here's how you can tell which is which. Before he does his bite attack, Rathalos will turn his head, tilt his body nearly 90 degrees, and curl his tail up in the same direction. This attack covers a small cone area in front of and behind him. Staying on his flanks or away from him will keep you from getting hit by this, since he won't track the initial target. For the tail spin, he will look to his right and wiggle his tail in the air. He always spins counterclockwise for this attack, so while it covers roughly 180 degrees of his body while spinning, if you keep to his left side, you'll be safe. The frontal charge is denoted by him turning to face his target and rearing slightly before putting his head down in a non-damaging roar. He moves in a straight line and doesn't follow the player after the charge animation has started, so simply moving to one side of him or the other will spare you the damage. I have noticed that he covers the distance much faster the farther the target player is away from him. Because of this, I recommend that even ranged players stay relatively close to help your reaction times. Now, this last one is tricky. This attack sucks even in Monster Hunter and is usually preceded by a flinch-inducing roar, making it very difficult to dodge. In Final Fantasy XIV, it's only slightly better. The biggest indicator that he'll do this attack is by what he's not doing. Before he attacks this way, he will turn toward his target but won't change his pose. This attack is incredibly dangerous to get hit by, as it can stun you on top of the burn, leaving you wide open for a charge or another attack that, in the extreme version, will kill you without healer intervention. His only other attack is the basic fireball that does splash damage around the target. It applies a burn that is removable by healer spells, but is otherwise unavoidable. Unlike the rest of Rathalos' attacks, however, there is an AoE indicator around the person he's attacking. Quick note for healers and supports: when Rathalos picks a target, he will still actually target the player, so target of target macros will work when preventing or removing dots as well as subsequent healing. That's the general overview of this trial's first half. If you can master reacting to those specific tells, you'll be able to avoid a lot of unnecessary damage. Just remember that the fireball attack in this phase should not be soaked by multiple players, that the burn debuffs can stack, and that they can only be cleansed by a healer spell. In the add phase, every enemy has the same Final Fantasy XIV mechanics regarding enmity, auto attacks, and visible telegraphs for their own attacks. What's different, however, is that they can be damaged by the boss, or in this case, Rathalos. Now, while each add will initially target Rathalos, players can still get hit by add attacks and grab threat from tank or healing abilities. This is where having a tank really comes in handy. While keeping the adds alive to attack Rathalos for a bit may have its advantages, with the extra AoEs to pay attention to, along with the Coral's giant cone attack, I found that it's better to round them up and bait Rathalos' attacks into them so you can do the damage yourselves. The Fireball AoE that targets each player can also be brought into the adds to deal extra damage to them. After the ad phase comes the transitionary part of the fight, where one player will mount the grounded Rathalos while the rest of the party burns down the Garula. The player who mounts Rathalos will take gradual damage while on its back, and while they can't use a Mega Potion here, they can be healed through spells by anyone else in the party. The Garula also dishes out a spicy cleave in front of him, so just have your tank point him away from the group. Please. Once the Garula is down, Rathalos will shake off the player mounting it and get ready for an arena-wide fire blast that will kill anyone who isn't standing behind the Garula's body. Note that the Garula needs to be between the party and Rathalos, not the center of the arena. If the mounting player dies before the Garula is killed, Rathalos will fly off and Garula will run away, leaving the rest of the group to die a fiery death. If you've managed to stay below 3 deaths and survive the Garula transition, congratulations! It's about to get really rough from here. Especially since you have to rely solely on your Mega Potions from now on. That's right, healing spells no longer work. Well, most don't, but we'll get to that in a second. In the final phase, he no longer runs on the ground, but stays hovering. This makes things a bit trickier since his wind-up animations aren't quite as noticeable. On the flip side, all you have to do is not be in front of him and you're pretty much set. I won't spend too much time on these attacks, but generally speaking there are 3 to be aware of. A bite directly in front of him, a short distance fire cleave in front of him, and a dive similar to his frontal charge in the previous phases. All you need to know for this phase is, if he's looking at you, get out of the way. The bite and fire cleave will both burn and stun you. The dive will stun you and leave you with a nice little poison dot. In any of these situations, if you fail to avoid these attacks, there's a good chance you're going to die from either dot damage or a follow-up attack. So while this advice has become a bit of a meme, it holds true here. Don't get hit. You will get hit, especially when you're new to this, but I'm here to tell you not to. It's okay every now and then, but just don't. So now that you know what to avoid, here's how to deal with what you can't. Some of you may have noticed that I left out a 4th attack, and that's because it's another targeted fireball with a visual marker. You're going to take this damage no matter what you do, so there's nothing to avoid. There are, however, good ways to deal with it. Like the first targeted fireball Rathalos does earlier on, this attack fixates on a random player and has a visual marker. Where it differs from the first attack is now the damage can be split across anyone who stands in it. This is the part of the fight where it's definitely more Final Fantasy than Monster Hunter. In any case, while the damage is reduced with each person in the stack, each person stacking gets a burning dot. That stacks. This attack also has 3 fireballs instead of just 1, so there's a good chance you'll need to heal at least once during these 3 attacks. There are a couple of ways to deal with this. If it's on a healer or a DPS, my groups usually have the whole party stacked to minimize the damage. If it's on a tank, they can use a cooldown or their invulnerability through the damage alone. In both situations, it's very helpful if the healer in your group has a Suna because the burn dots are cleansable. Same with the poison. Having the whole party stacked saves on Mega Potions, but will need more cleanses. Having the tank eat them alone means a couple Mega Potions, but only 1 cleanse as long as you wait until the 3rd fireball to do so. But be careful while doing this. After his initial fire blast to start the phase, as well as these fireball attacks, he will quickly pick a new target and go in for another attack. If you're not paying attention, you're gonna get hit, which I told you not to do. Now that you have the basic idea, here's a quick summary of what I'd recommend for that last phase. After his fire blast and he becomes targetable, watch where he looks and be ready to move right away. Keep an eye on where he's facing and keep to his sides or as far behind him as possible. Stay relatively close to each other so that he doesn't speed up his dive and that you can stack easily for fireballs if needed. If a tank gets the fireball, let them pick which ones to soak alone with their cooldowns. Wait till the 3rd fireball, cleanse the burn, and have them use a Mega Potion. If it's a DPS or a healer, stack up and cleanse as you go until the 3rd fireball. Immediately after that 3rd goes out, he will turn and attack. After that attack, it's safe for a second to get another cleanse or potion off before he lines up another one. Aside from dodging, you'll be dealing damage to him to fill up his down gauge. This will knock him down and give him a high vulnerability, so it's a good idea to save heavy cooldowns for this part. First you'll get the chance to cut off his tail, or at least break it similar to Shinryu, which will take a nice chunk out of his health. The next time he goes down is the perfect opportunity for a limit break, so hang on to it for then too. A few downs with good damage should get you the clear. Woohoo! Now that we're done with the fight, I want to take a second to identify the differences between Monster Hunter and Final Fantasy XIV in this trial. It should be obvious that, since it's Final Fantasy XIV, there will in fact be differences present. Which ones are there, however, could make or break your desire to try out the source material in Monster Hunter World. These are not criticisms of the Rathalos trial, just a list of things that were changed to accommodate Monster Hunter World material being in Final Fantasy. Number 1. There is no such thing as unavoidable damage in Monster Hunter World. There are attacks that are unblockable without certain skills or have an extremely wide range, but for the most part there is no guaranteed damage. Even with Behemoth in Monster Hunter World, you can avoid his Ecliptic Meteor by standing behind the comet just like in Final Fantasy. The only exceptions I can think of at this point in time are Arc-Tempered Valhazak's Super Miasma and Teostra's Heat Aura. These will gradually drain your health, but there are armor skills, items, and methods to keep your health loss to a minimum. There are also a couple of the hardest monsters in the game too though, so they are outliers. Number 2. Burning damage does not stack in Monster Hunter World. You can take an item called a Nullberry or simply roll a few times to get the burn off of you as well. Rolling through water will get it off faster, though you can also build armor with enough fire resistance to negate it altogether. Number 3. The tail swipe from a monster's bite attacks don't do nearly that much damage, though some can make you flinch. Number 4. Roars don't do damage. They will make you flinch if you don't have the earplug skill, but they will not directly hurt you, unless you're playing a previous title and decide fighting a Tigrex is a good use of your time. Number 5. You don't lose health from mounting a monster. You have a stamina resource which will deplete over time as the monster tries to shake you off, but your health is unaffected. Also, at the end of mounting a monster, you'll have the chance to do a special attack and knock it to the ground, giving a good opportunity for more damage instead of it just flying or running off. Number 6. You can roll, counter, or block attacks in Monster Hunter World to negate damage. Hitboxes can still be a pain, but you have much more mobility in Monster Hunter than you do in Final Fantasy. Number 7. You can't get hurt when you're knocked down in Monster Hunter World. There's an invincibility window until you stand back up to prevent you from getting wombo comboed by any given monster because, trust me, they will try. In fact, getting up too quickly could result in you just lining yourself up for a follow-up attack. Number 8. You will never stack to soak damage from an oncoming attack. Number 9. You can solo hunts. All you need is knowledge of the monster you're fighting, a familiarity with your weapon of choice, and some tools to lock the monster down while you beat it to death. As I said before, there's no guaranteed damage along with a good number of ways to avoid the damage going out, so you can go entire hunts without taking any damage at all. There are probably more differences, but those are the big ones that stuck out to me while I was playing the trial. I admit, I was trying to keep my mindset overly faithful to the Monster Hunter franchise and got bamboozled a couple times because things didn't happen the way I expected. Overall though, I really enjoyed the trial and I'm looking forward to farming it more when I have the time. The fact that these two games came together this way to make a crossover of this scale is still surreal to me. My deepest gratitude goes out to both Yoshida-san and Tsujimoto-san, along with all their teams for making this a reality. It is literally a dream come true for me. That being said, I hope this guide has been helpful and that I'll see some of you in the new world. See you next time.